The scissors made a sickening crunch as they sliced through Madison Hayes' long auburn hair, chunks falling to the classroom floor while 23 students watched in stunned silence. What started as a cruel prank by the school's golden boy quarterback would unleash a chain of events that would destroy careers, expose a decade-old scandal, and send 3 people to prison. They thought she was just another scholarship kid they could humiliate without consequences. They had no idea Madison Hayes was about to teach them the most expensive lesson of their lives. Madison Hayes had always known Westfield Academy operated by different rules than the rest of the world. The elite private school tucked away in Connecticut's wealthiest district was a universe where last names mattered more than SAT scores, where parking lots gleamed with Ferraris and Bentleys, and where a single donation could erase any transgression. She'd earned her spot through pure academic brilliance. A full scholarship that covered the $85,000 annual tuition, but couldn't buy her acceptance among the legacy students who'd been groomed for Westfield since birth. At 17, Madison possessed the kind of sharp intelligence that made teachers uncomfortable and classmates resentful. Her essays dissected societal inequalities with surgical precision. Her debate performances left open and stammering. Her 4.0 GPA street ood as an unassailable monument to merit in a place that usually rewarded connections over competence. And that excellence, that refusal to diminish herself for others' comfort, had painted a target on her back from day one. The morning of the 15th of October began like any other. Madison arrived at 7:30 a.m., an hour before most students, to use the library's resources her apartment's cramped study corner couldn't provide. She'd been preparing for the National Merit Scholarship Competition, the kind of achievement that could secure her future beyond Westfield's ivory towers. Her hair, which fell past her shoulders in carefully maintained waves, was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She'd inherited the auburn color from her Irish grandmother, along with a spine made of steel and a tongue sharp enough to cut glass. By 10:45 a.m., she was sitting in advanced European history, front row center as always. When everything changed, Mr. Davidson was droning about the Treaty of Versailles when she felt the first tug on her ponytail. She ignored it, assuming someone had accidentally brushed against her while passing. The second tug was deliberate, followed by muffled laughter from the back of the room. Madison didn't turn around. She'd learned that acknowledging the harassment only encouraged it. Then she heard the metallic whisper of scissors opening. The sound triggered every alarm in her mind. But before she could react, before she could even turn her head, she felt the blade close around her hair. The cut wasn't clean or quick. It was jagged, deliberate, performed with the kind of malicious precision that spoke of premeditation. Chunks of auburn hair floated to the floor like autumn leaves, while the classroom erupted in gasps and nervous giggles. Madison's hand flew to the back of her head, fingers finding the ragged edges where her ponytail had been. She turned slowly, mechanically, to face her attacker. Trevor Sinclair stood behind her empty desk, a pair of fabric scissors in his manicured hand and a smirk playing on his lips that would cost his family more than they could imagine. The quarterback's blue eyes sparkled with the kind of cruelty that money had always protected, the kind of entitlement that assumed consequences were for other people. Behind Trevor stood his usual crew, Blake Morrison, whose father owned the largest pharmaceutical company in the Northeast, Emma Cartwright, heir to a fashion empire, and Derek Chen, son of a hedge fund billionaire. They formed a semicircle of privilege, their expressions ranging from shock to amusement to something darker that Madison recognized as anticipation. They were waiting for her to cry, to run, to give them the reaction they'd choreographed in their group chat the night before. Mr. Davidson, all 6 feet of academic mediocrity stuffed into a brown suit, finally noticed the disturbance. His eyes took in the scene: Madison's butchered hair, Trevor's scissors, the auburn evidence scattered across the floor, and made a calculation that would later feature prominently in a criminal investigation. He cleared his throat, adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses, and continued his lecture as if nothing had happened. As I was saying, the treaty's Article 231, commonly known as the War Guilt Clause. His words faded into white noise as Madison processed what had just occurred. Not the haircut itself. Hair grew back, and she'd never defined herself by her appearance. It was the synchronized nature of the attack, the way even peripheral students had shifted their desks to create better viewing angles, the way phones had appeared in hands just seconds before Trevor struck. This wasn't spontaneous cruelty. This was orchestrated humiliation. And Mr. Davidson's deliberate blindness confirmed what she'd suspected for 3 years. The rod at Westfield went all the way to the top. Madison stood slowly. Her movements deliberate and controlled. She didn't touch her hair again. Didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her assess the damage. Instead, she walked to Mr. Davidson's desk, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. The teacher's hand trembled slightly as he continued writing on the board, his back turned in a cowardice, so complete it bordered on parody. "Mr. Davidson," Madison said, her voice carrying the kind of calm that preceded hurricanes, "I need to report an assault." The chalk in his hand snapped. He turned, his face already arranging itself into the expression of willful ignorance that had served him through 2 decades of enabling Westfield's worst impulses. "I'm sure whatever happened was just a misunderstanding. Miss Hayes, please return to your seat." "A misunderstanding," Madison repeated, each syllable precise as a scalpel. "Would you like me to collect my hair from the floor to help clarify that misunderstanding? Or should I leave it there as evidence for the police report I'll be filing?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Trevor's smirk faltered for the first time, a hairline crack in his armor of assumed immunity. Emma Cartwright's phone lowered slightly, her recording suddenly feeling less like entertainment and more like evidence. Blake Morrison took an unconscious step backward, the first rat sensing the ship might actually sink this time. Mr. Davidson's face cycled through several shades of red before settling on a mottled purple that clashed with his tie. "Miss Hayes, I think you're overreacting. Boys will be boys. And I'm sure Trevor meant no real harm. Perhaps if you hadn't been so provocative in your academic performance, these tensions wouldn't arise." The words hung in the air like a confession. Several students gasped, recognizing that their teacher had just crossed a line, from passive enabling to active victim blaming. Madison smiled then, a expression that would haunt Trevor Sinclair's dreams for years to come. It wasn't a smile of hurt or anger or even defiance. It was the smile of someone who'd just been handed exactly what they needed. "Provocative," she said, savoring the word. "My academic performance is provocative. I want to make sure I understand your position clearly. Mr. Davidson, you're stating, on record, in front of 23 witnesses, that my academic excellence provoked a physical assault, and that this assault is acceptable because, quote, boys will be boys. Is that correct?" The teacher's mouth opened and closed, like a fish gasping for air. He looked to Trevor for help. A moment of naked desperation that revealed the true power dynamics at play. The quarterback's father donated 7 figures annually to Westfield's endowment. Madison's mother worked 2 jobs to cover what the scholarship didn't. In Mr. Davidson's moral calculus, the math was simple. "What I meant was," he began. But Madison cut him off. "I know exactly what you meant." She turned to address the class, her butchered hair creating a defiant halo in the morning light, streaming through the windows. "I want everyone here to remember this moment. Remember what you saw. Remember what you heard. Remember who stayed silent and who spoke up. Because I promise you, this isn't over." She gathered her books with methodical precision, refusing to rush, refusing to flee. As she reached the door, she paused and looked back at Trevor. He still held the scissors, his knuckles white around the handles, his blue eyes no longer sparkling with cruelty, but clouded with the first stirrings of genuine fear. "Your father's name is Richard Sinclair,"